A political earthquake may sound like hyperbole, but however you describe it, victory for a party without an MP or a council leader is unprecedented. Ukip took the most votes and the most seats in the European Parliament elections. Here's how it looks. There were 73 seats up for grabs. Ukip took 24 seats, beating Labour, who took 20 seats. The Conservatives, who topped the poll 5 years ago, came third. And it was humiliation for the Liberal Democrats, who were beaten into joint 6th place by the Greens, along with the SNP and Plaid Cymru. The results here have been mirrored across Europe. We'll have more on that shortly from our Europe editor, Matt Fry, in Paris. But first, here's our political editor, Gary Gibbon. And just to warn you, his report does contain some flash photography.
Like a torch-wielding mob, they came in the night, hunting down the political establishment.
The People's Army that support UKIP, despite shed loads of abuse that have been thrown at us over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks, went out, voted UKIP, and this party has done something that hasn't been done for over 100 years. We have won a national election in this country, and I'm immensely proud of that achievement. I really am. Bad publicity for the party, is it?
It's very good, Nigel, very good.
Nigel Farage himself gave a commentary on how he thought his victory would impact on British politics. And he started with the man who took him on in the one-on-one debates.
Clegg, I think, his position as a result of last night, I find it very difficult to believe that he will lead the Lib Dems into the next general election.
Last night's disastrous results led some Lib Dems to say Nick Clegg should go. One MP said the party should anoint Vince Cable as successor.
And if reality is telling us that Nick is not being heard, Nick is not getting the votes, Nick's ratings are low, then we've got to do something about that. We can't go into an election with a leader that is a drag on the vote. We've got to have a leader who buoys the vote up. I favour, personally, Vince Cable, because I think against the other identikit, Miliband and Cameron, I think he will do fairly well.
At lunchtime, an exhausted-looking Nick Clegg emerged to say he wasn't budging.
Well, look, there are some individuals who say that they want a change of leadership, or they want a change of strategy, or that they want to pull out of the coalition altogether. And of course it's right to have searching questions in the wake of such a bad set of election results. But if I'm honest with you, the easiest thing in politics, just as in life, is sometimes when the going gets really, really tough, is just to walk away, to wash your hands of it. But I'm not going to do that, and my party's not going to do that.
So it hasn't even crossed your mind that you might resign?
No, it hasn't.
Nick Clegg's team is confident he won't be the first victim of the UKIP uprising. His team say they don't expect any more MPs to call for him to go. The self-proclaimed leader of the People's Army then mocked the Labour leader's lack of any popular touch.
As for Mr Miliband, it is difficult to think of somebody who is more out of touch with his own working-class voters.
I think many people who are voting for UKIP were saying we're really discontented with the way the country works and we're asking whether politics can answer that. I intend to show we can.
Nigel Farage's army nearly chased Labour down to 3rd place in this election. He said the leader who'd got off lightest from last night was the Prime Minister.
And as for David Cameron, well, in some ways, he emerges amongst the other leaders, I would say, the least scathed.
UKIP had already eaten into the Tory vote. The fresh chunks torn out of Labour's vote were privately gloated over by Tory strategists.
This is a kicking of the major parties, and that perhaps you're completely out of touch on the issues that people really care about.
Well, people use elections like this to send messages to the government, and the message on Europe I absolutely receive and understand, which is people want change in Europe.
The response we're getting, and I'm watching the television interviews, they all look a little bit like goldfish that have just been tipped out of the bowl onto the floor, desperately gasping for air and clinging on to the comfort blanket that is, this is a protest vote. Well, I would say this, it's beginning to look like a bit of a permanent protest. That a lot of these people have decided they are UKIP voters and they're going to stay with us.
And that is the hounded major party leader's darkest fear. History suggests that voters come back to the mothership parties in the general election, but times change. UKIP now hopes to prove its permanence by moving its army onto Newark and the by-election next week.